Hi, I'm your host Jared Gross, and thank you for joining us on The Community Producers, a monthly show produced by community volunteers like myself. And we begin this month in Cranbrook, where Dennis Walker is joined by a pair of mountain climbers back from an impressive adventure.
We've got a couple of people in studio today that did a 24-day trek over the Purcell Mountains in August. We want to welcome Sean Emmett and Steve Tersmetti in studio. Steve, how are you today?
No, not bad. Still recovering.
Good to start with you. Yeah. How do you recover after something like that? Just rest a lot?
Oh man, rest, food, water. Yeah, though that trip takes a toll on a body for sure.
Was it what you thought it was going to be like?
Some days. Yeah, there were some days where they were every bit as hard as we thought. It was every bit as beautiful as we thought, yeah, just fortunate that when everything was said and done, we completed the trip as we set out safely and successfully.
Sean, what are some of the landmarks? Because people don't have a map in front of them, but can you go through the Purcells for us, just in short, nutshell it for us?
Oh, try to shorten up for you. Started off at the parking lot for the Dewar Hot Springs, went up over Radiant Peak, up and around Dutchess, which has some beautiful tarns up there. Again, kind of north towards Lees and Clutterbuck, which gave more amazing views, hard to get at. Toby Mountain and Toby Glacier, absolutely beautiful. Of course, we kind of cut through the Bugaboos, which is another just amazing place if you can ever get a chance to visit it. And then from there, north over to the Rogers Pass, Caribou Ridge.
What happens when you get up there, though, Steve, and you say, gee, I forgot something back at home? How do you prepare for that? And did you forget anything you should have had with you?
I don't think we really forgot anything. There were some things, like just some extra tea that, a little bit of extra food would have been probably beneficial. But no, it was months and months of preparing gear and food. And prior to that, it was years of preparing the route, planning the route, and the logistics of taking on a trip like this.
How was the weather? Did it hold up for you for the 24 days?
We had probably at least 18 days, 19 days of absolutely sunny blue sky weather. Smoke for a few of the days that blew in wherever we were, just due to the wildfire statuses west and south of us. And really only had 2 significant days of rain. One where we were fortunate enough to be in a shelter, and another one where we were stuck in the tent on a muddy ledge.
You have to know each other quite well, too, when you take on something like this, because you're together for 24 days. Personality-wise, did you click well before you went up, and do you still click well today, or were there some tensions up there when you were doing this?
No, that was the big thing. You just can't pull off a trip like this without working as a team, and I think for Sean and I, we got we're kind of on the same level in terms of personality and not too many ups and downs emotionally, but yeah, there's a lot of trust and a lot of teamwork that you need to go along in this trip.
Sean, were you dared, or were you challenging each other, or saying, what's one thing we want to do while we're young enough, while we're in good shape? What brought this all on?
Well, for starters, Steve just asked me, and I just said yes. I'm one of those guys, if you picture doing it, you can get it done. But I did turn 40 this year, and that was kind of one of the motivations. Just to do something neat like this. We've got a very adventurous East Kootenay community here. I really wanted to contribute to that.
I can only imagine what the views would be like when you're on the tip tops and you're looking down. What were some of the spectacular scenes that you could see in the valley bottoms that were a long ways down?
One of the places that really stands out in my mind was we got to a little tarn quite high up on a mountain. It was kind of held in this little pool on the side of a mountain. And really unique that the water would just stay in there. But we were at probably 2,600 meters, literally 2/3, 3/4 of the way up a mountain, and found this pool. And the next morning at sunrise, bluebird day, the sun's out, the water is like a mirror, and you've got this gorgeous reflection of one of the peaks to the south of us, Mount Monica, just perfectly reflected in this pond. And there were a lot of great moments up high where we're up on Caribou Ridge and we're looking out towards the Selkirks over the Beaver and Duncan valleys, and just big scenery, tons of relief in the mountains, like from valley bottom to peak. Some of these are over 2,400 meters.
Did you journal the trip though at all? Or did you just take pictures and you can show to share later? Or did you actually write down what was happening along the way? What were the hard days, the easy days, and the fun times?
Absolutely. I got one of those little yellow expedition journals. I wrote in that every day. Steve kept his own little log too. So we got 2 separate journals that are documenting everything that we did. It makes you mark weather, elevations. So we got a pretty good record of what we did.
Done and done, would you ever take on something like this again in maybe a different location?
You know what? Now that I'm rested up, absolutely, I think again. When we were coming up to day 24, we just were more than happy to get out and excited and be like, are we going to do this one again? But, in 5 years, it'd be neat to do it in a winter traverse on skis just to see how it travels then. It has been done, I believe, a couple times that way, but I would like to experience that maybe. Or we've just got some fantastic terrain in BC with traverses all over the place to attempt something else.
Are you single, man? How did it affect your families? I guess single or not, mums and dads, everybody's going to be thinking about you when you're doing something like this.
Yeah, I got a wife and 2 little kids, and Sean's got a girlfriend. My wife's basically said, "You owe me," but she knew this was coming for the last few years. She knew this trip was coming. We had the dates ironed out a long time in advance, so everyone had lots of heads up that we were gonna do this.
Thanks for coming to see us. Yeah. Did you want to pass along some thank yous out there, or some thanks if you want to before we go here today?
Absolutely. We were fortunate enough to be the recipients of the MEC Adventure Grant, which was awarded to us by the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival. So a big thanks to Tom Wright at the VIMFF, and we also want to thank the folks at MEC. They provided some expedition support to us, just allowed us to make some really good investments in gear prior to our trip. Family, friends, and coworkers, man, we had a lot of support leading up to, and lots of well wishes during our trip. And I do personally want to thank another gent in Kimberley, and he kind of for providing the inspiration for this trip almost 10 years ago. His name is Dave Quinn from Kimberley, and without his vision and his ambition, it's likely that this trip would not have kind of materialized.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Very interesting. Sean and Steve Tersmetti and Sean Emmett, who did a 24-day trek over the Purcell Mountains this past summer.
Gamers from across the Kootenays recently came together in Cranbrook for Extra Life Game Day, the annual 12-hour gaming marathon in support of the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation. In its first 3 years of existence, Extra Life Game Day in Cranbrook has raised more than $15,000 for sick children and their families.
The excitement right now with all the people in the building and just how much is going on is outstanding. It warms my heart. It absolutely does.
It's been a tough year for organizer Dave Miller. In June, after suffering from extreme stomach pain, his 2-year-old son Landon would be diagnosed with a rare heart disease.
He was diagnosed with restrictive cardiomyopathy, which is a rare form of the same heart disease that my oldest son had.
And just like Miller's oldest son Alex, Landon would require a heart transplant in order to survive.
I would be lying if I said I went through anything short of PTSD, which I was actually diagnosed with by a therapist at the Alberta Children's Hospital.
Back in Cranbrook, game day plans came to a halt as family and friends rallied around Miller and his family.
We didn't even think about game day. It's like, okay, what can we do to help them? Send them money? That we can't afford to send them enough money. So we decided, well, we're going to do a fundraiser for them.
There was a lot of tears from Calgary. To find out that the entire community was behind us meant more than words can express.
Despite all the adversity, organizers would band together and pull off their 4th consecutive event, something Aaron Schultz credits to the 30-plus volunteers who donated their time.
We have a really good group of volunteers that we know we can trust. And as long as we had these great people, we'd be fine.
And they were, as 295 gamers showed up from all around, including Nick Rinney, who came from Nelson with 3 of his friends.
We don't have quite a large community like larger cities like Calgary or Vancouver would, so we really use these events and these opportunities to come together as a big group of people that are kind of scattered everywhere. I didn't quite realize how big the hall was going to be and how many different vendors and stations and stuff were going to be here, and how many actual activities and kind of draw prizes, and it kind of blew my expectations out of the water.
And the chance to support a good cause made it even better.
It's not every day that we can really seamlessly mesh charity events and video games. A lot of times people these days especially spend their time playing video games alone in their room, and these events really encourage community building and people to come together, especially for a really good cause.
As Landon awaits his heart transplant, Miller is determined to raise as much money as he can for kids just like his own.
This isn't a personal thing for me. This has always been about helping the kids at the hospital, especially after being there and staying at Ronald McDonald House next to the hospital and meeting so many other kids and their families.
In total, the event would raise $9,008 for the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation. For the community producers in Cranbrook, I'm Jared Gross. As the first Canadian to walk in space and the former commander of the International Space Station, Chris Hadfield definitely has an interesting story. And he recently made a stop in Cranbrook to share that story with a group of students.
The space shuttle had 80 million horsepower. 80 million horsepower. And you can feel like every single one of those horses kicking you in the back as you're getting pushed up off the surface of the world.
Following a 21-year career as an astronaut, Chris Hadfield is now retired and using his experiences to inspire others, especially the younger generation.
The opportunity to talk to young Canadians is a huge privilege. I do it as often as time allows. I am so fortunate compared to so many people around the world, but I think with that fortune comes the responsibility to try and help shape the lives of the people that are following.
Growing up on a corn farm in southern Ontario, in a time when space travel was more science fiction than reality, it was one event, July 20th, 1969, which would change his life forever, as a 9-year-old Hadfield watched the first moon landing.
That transition from historic fantasy to a present reality really changed what I chose to do with my life. I made different choices in my life as a result of the people who had inspired me.
What followed was a commitment to one day become an astronaut. 25 years later, that dream would become a reality as Hadfield entered into orbit as part of a mission to the Mir space station in November 1995.
To see a point of light that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and turns into this human creation orbiting the world, and then come in and dock and open the hatch and go inside, it seems like a miracle.
Throughout his career, Hadfield would spend a total of 6 months in space, circling Earth 2,600 times. In 2013, he would even record a series of songs in orbit, which would eventually form Space Sessions, Songs from a Tin Can, the only album ever featuring songs recorded in space.
I can draw lots of charts and graphs of what I've done. I've written books about it. But for a lot of people, expressing it musically allows them to sort of feel it differently or more completely than they will any other way.
I definitely like the singing aspect of it because I'm a very musical person in general. It's not any sort of scientific breakthrough, but I think it's still interesting.
Hadfield's story is one of sacrifice, perseverance, and making your dreams come true. For students, it's affirmation that anything is possible.
No matter what walk of life you come from, you can really do whatever you want as long as you persevere and you kind of just do what you say you're going to do and, get through the rough times and, overcome.
It's kind of inspirational how it shows that you can do whatever you put your mind to.
You can always chase your dreams and always just continue on and never really give up.
He really inspired me to do what I want when I grow up and to
give it your fullest and to not be afraid of things in life.
I hope they start thinking about the choices they make and how those choices will someday impact their futures. And I think there's that message that failure is okay because you're supposed to learn from failure. I see way too many kids nowadays that they're terrified to try anything because they're scared to fail.
I hope that the students here today maybe see the world in a way they hadn't completely seen it before. Some ideas of things that are happening that maybe they weren't aware of. And with both of those, perhaps a sense of opportunity for them individually, things they might have a chance to do.
For the community producers in Cranbrook, I'm Jeremy Russin.
Welcome back. Students in Cranbrook have teamed up with Columbia Outdoor School in an effort to restore Idlewild Lake and Joseph Creek.
Once a healthy ecosystem, Joseph Creek is no longer what it used to be.
Over time, the creek has been affected by development, and as the city grew, that development started to encroach on the creek. Water pollution started to get into the creek, and the area around the stream beds was affected through invasive species.
With the city making a commitment to restore the entire length of the creek, the first order of business was to repair Idlewild Dam, a process which involved scraping the bottom of Idlewild Lake.
There was a fairly significant layer of dog poop bags all across the bottom of the lake. That in itself has provided us with a lower quality of water that's now flowing downstream and all through the community.
As a result, the Columbia Outdoor School has been hired by the city to not only begin restoring the lake and creek, but also to educate and engage the public, beginning with students.
This was a perfect opportunity to put both of those projects together where kids can come out, they'll learn a little bit about the creek and about riparian values and wetland values. They'll plant a portion of the lake, and then of course it helps us because we have a pool of people who are helping us plant 3,500 plants in and around the lake.
There's been a lot of machinery around here and there could be damage done to the earth, so by doing this we are helping recreating the nature.
We need to be part of our community, and it's good to help the environment, and it's really fun too.
Some of the ecosystems aren't as healthy as they could be, so if we plant more plants we can kind of save them so that they can be a lot better.
Teacher Orrin Hawk says opportunities like this provide real-world examples for students to take back to the classroom.
The main focus of our content right now that I'm teaching them is that Earth and climate have changed over time and that humans have influenced how Earth is going to change. And so we've seen that human activity can have a negative effect on the Earth due to global warming, but we can also see that we can make a positive change.
And plant by plant, they're creating that positive change with the end goal of restoring the creek back to its former glory.
My father grew up here, and as a child he remembers swimming and fishing all throughout the creek and catching large fish. And I think that that's what we'd love to see, is that opportunity for kids into the future that they can go and play and enjoy and catch some fish out of the creek.
It's very exciting, especially with like all the new plants and the lake having trout in it is pretty cool.
For the community producers in Cranbrook, I'm Layla Gross.
A new initiative in Invermere is honoring Columbia Valley veterans. Bill Brewer explains.
These 37 banners lining the streets of downtown Invermere recognize 74 local veterans who served in the Boer War, World Wars I and II, and the Korean War. The project is the idea of author Eleanor Florence.
The idea of seeing the actual veteran's face is very powerful. Even if you don't know the veterans, just to look at them and to look into their eyes and to see how young they were.
Work began in December of 2016. Once the idea had the support of mayor and council, It was up to Florence to bring the veterans' families on board.
Once we showed them a photograph of what the banner would look like, they were ecstatic, and we didn't have any trouble filling the banner spots. It was first come, first served, and everybody was on board right away.
Families were asked to pay a $100 fee to cover costs. The response was so positive that all 74 spots sold out and a waiting list was formed.
Myself and council is very impressed with how quickly they pulled this together, and also how strongly the community got behind it. The people that were really interested in having family members and friends of the family and recognize those veterans, it's been very popular. So we're really impressed with the program.
The project holds extra meaning for Sandy Jones, who has had 7 family members serve in the wars, including her father Carl.
A few years ago, I decided that I wanted to do more research on my dad's time in the wars. He never talked about it. And then when Eleanor came forward, it was just another way to honor him.
She's excited to share her family's story.
It's nice as a reminder of the time that they served overseas for us. I know it wasn't easy after doing the research, and I have grandchildren who are now here, and it's nice that they can see the veterans who served in the war.
Veterans from the Shuswap and Akiskanook bands have also been honored, something Patsy Nicholas says has helped recognize First Nations contributions to the wars.
It was kind of lost for a little while, and so it's kind of like reviving that significance.
While it's the first initiative of its kind in the area, Florence is confident it won't be the last.
We've had inquiries from other towns, and I think it's just an ideal way for communities to remember their own veterans.
There has been a lot of positive feedback with people commenting on the banners and what a great memorial it is. I had a couple from Port Moody stop me when we were putting the banners up and commenting it was one of the nicest memorials they had seen.
A lot of times we see clips on the news or we read things in the history book, but it seems quite abstract. So when you see a face and a name, and in a lot of cases a family name you might recognize, it really kind of humanizes and makes it real.
For the community producers in Invermere, I'm Bill Brewer.
That's all the time we have here on this episode of The Community Producers. I'm Jared Gross. Thanks for watching.